You're listening to A Day Podcast. Podcast for all things creative. โรงเรียนนานาชาติ International School Podcast. Learning from the expats.
สวัสดีครับคุณผู้ฟังครับเต้สุปจนกลิ่นสุวรรณรายงานตัวนะครับพอดแคสต์ของเราในวันนี้ได้รับเกียรติจากศิลปินชาวเบลเยียมนะครับที่ตอนนี้พำนักอยู่ในประเทศไทยมาพักใหญ่ๆแล้วนะฮะในฐานะนักดนตรีเนี่ยเขาไม่ได้เรียกตัวเองว่าเป็น pianist นะครับแต่เป็น Pianologist หลายๆคนอาจจะไม่ทราบเลยครับว่าคำที่แปลว่าอะไรเหมือนผมนะฮะเพราะนั้นเดี๋ยวเราจะไปหาคำตอบพร้อมกันนะครับขอต้อนรับครับคุณโจนาสเดปครับสวัสดีครับคุณโจนาสครับ
สวัสดีครับ
โอ้คุณโจนาสพูดไทยได้คล่องอยู่นะ
ได้นิดหน่อยครับ
ได้นิดหน่อยครับ so first up for clarification are you in any way related to Johnny Depp
I wish I was I like him a lot. I've been asked that many times, and I sometimes said yes, sometimes no.
Oh, okay.
But reality is no, I'm not related.
Right, because actually your surnames are spelled differently.
I know.
ใช่ไหมฮะ
I'm not even sure my parents were aware when they picked my name.
Okay. นะฮะก็ตอนนี้อยู่กับคุณโจนาสเดปนะครับ Before we ask you about the difference between a pianist and a pianologist, let's go back a bit. All right, can you please tell us a bit about your childhood?My
childhood?
Yeah.
Okay, I grew up in Belgium, so under a lot of rain, very short days in winter and very long days in summer. So I grew up first in a castle in Ghent.
Okay.
Until 6 years old, and then we moved to the French part of Belgium, where I stayed until around Brussels until much later, until I moved to Thailand, basically.
Right. So when people think of Belgium, we think of chocolate. To you, as a Belgian, what is Belgium most famous for?
Beer, definitely. 100%.
Okay.
I don't even like chocolate that much.
Okay.
But most people do. I'm an exception.
Okay, I get it. Right. So if Belgium is equivalent to beer or chocolate in for so many people's cases, Thailand is equivalent to
Oh, that's a hard one. Great food for sure. I would say
one item.
Tom yum.
Tom yum.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I have many favorites, but if I want to think of one staple dish, maybe I would think tom yum.
Tom yum.
I love khao soi, but that's like not Thailand only. It's more like the north, right?
Yeah.
And I love khao che, which is a bit particular.
Tom yum.
Tom yum, maybe.
All right, let's go with that. All right. So let's go straight to your career. Who introduced you to the piano?
So actually, the piano that arrived in my house arrived there by accident. It belonged to an uncle who was moving away and got rid of all his things. So the piano was dumped in my house when I was 5-year-old. And so my first teacher, if I can use a quotation mark, was just a neighbor who could not really play piano but knew 2 songs.
Okay.
And he taught me those songs when I was a child.
Okay. So it was by accident.
Totally.
So when did you start practicing it seriously?
I would say around 10. But then very seriously was 14 when I decided to set this as a goal for a career. It was 14.
Right. So for the first 5 or 9 years, it was just sitting there in your house.
I was practicing every day, but maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And it increased bit by bit. When I changed to a much better teacher when I was 9 or 10, that's when it skyrocketed and he pushed me to practice a lot more. And
what is the longest amount of time that you've practiced in one session?
If you don't count the toilet breaks, then maybe I would say 12 hours.
Ooh!
Yeah.
12 hours?
Maybe more.
Right. So what's the passion? I mean, what is it that you like about this instrument with 88 keys, black and white?
When I first learned to play it, it was just a toy like another. So I got used to the sound and it was a familiar thing to me, like one of my favorite toys or pet. But I think in the first solo experience on the stage as a performance, that's when I felt like a vibrant passion.
Oh, so it just struck you?
Yes. To having all the ears listening around and the silence and controlling all the time and the emotions, and I felt right.
Right. If your uncle, when you were 5 years old, left a guitar or a cello,
Who knows what would have happened?
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. So, how long do people have to normally learn or practice a musical instrument before one becomes an expert?
So there is a distinction to make, I think, between being an expert at an instrument or being an expert in music. Because learning to play pretty good an instrument can go very quick. If it's a guitar, we can say 2-3 years. If it's drums, same amount of time. Piano maybe a little longer. Violin a little bit more. But to be an expert at music, that's a lifetime.
Right.
Yes.
So, can you please define a good musician?
A good musician, to me, he knows how to tell a story while he's playing the music. I think also he needs to have his ears placed everywhere around him, in the audience, in the piano. And also the main point I would think is to be able to hear the present with your ears, but also hear the very near future in your head at the same time.
Kind of have to imagine through.
Yes, and know where you're going.
I see.
Kind of when you play the first note, you already hear the last note, and you know how you're gonna get there.
So I understand that you've been playing in various places and places where piano concerts shouldn't be held, for aquariums and all. Can you share with us that?
Yes.
Those different locations.
Okay, so first of all, I think concerts should be everywhere. Everywhere possible, as long as the acoustic allows.
Yeah.
I've done very funny like that. The aquarium was one of my favorites, where I tried to create a muffled sound in the piano, like a sunken piano under the sea.
And what did the fish say?
The fish were quiet until the finale, because we threw a lot of food for the sharks, and they were feeding just above me.
Okay. And you were playing the Jaws theme song.
I've thought about it, but it has only 2 notes, so I would get bored. That's right.
That's 3 more.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yes, but just a piano, it wouldn't sound that good if it's not an orchestra.
Of course
so
not.
that was a piece of Debussy called La Mer.
I see. Right. So, does the location you play have an influence on your mood of music? And on the contrary, does your music change the mood of that location as well?
It definitely changes the mood of my music, 100% sure.
Okay.
And I always try to listen to what the location is telling me.
All right.
And incorporate that, whether it's a resonance, an echo, a quality of sound, a background noise.
Yeah.
I always try to take that in and incorporate it and use it as a benefit. Now, I think also the music influences the place, but you'll have to ask the walls what they think. But for sure, a sound or a music can create a mood.
I see.
Anywhere.
So, as an expert and talented musician, do you still have to practice?
Well, I don't call myself an absolute expert. I still have a lot to learn, but I practice every day, yes.
You still do?
Yes.
All right. So, can you define your style of music, please?
Okay, so recently I started composing my own music. Well, I started about 10 years ago, but it was embryos, little pieces here and there, and finished pieces. It started last year, really. So that's my first own style, I would say. Before that, I was playing mostly other people's music.
Right.
So my style, if I have to define it, which is very hard for me, I would say it's neoclassical in some way, because I really root my practice in the classical knowledge and structure, but then I also like to break free from that structure. But I like it to be intelligible, not abstract music that is all over the place. I think I still like to have lines and clear harmonies,
Right.
but might have a lot of different sounds. So I like to mix acoustic piano and electronics, or acoustic piano with big giant gongs, or sounds I record, rain, waterfalls, Chinese opera, temple drums, anything that sounds nice to me.
Right. So just thinking outside the box.
Hopefully, yes.
Right. So what is the main difference between a pianist, a piano artist, and in your case, a pianologist?
So just to clarify, pianologist, I think I kind of invented the word.
Okay.
So I might have to invent the definition as well.
I was kind of looking up that word,
Yeah, I think it's to me I love to make cocktails first of all. So a mixologist is someone I look up to, and I think the difference between a bartender and a mixologist could be compared to the difference between a pianist and a pianologist. So a bartender will be able to make you a gin tonic, a good gin tonic or a good martini. But if you ask him to create something with the magic ingredient, it might not turn out that well.
So it's kind of like being based on a recipe. In your case, being based on a piano score or a music sheet. Something like that.
Yeah, you could say that. And then the pianologist maybe can interpret a bit more with the context.
I see.
And adapt and create something fresh and new with the ingredients that are the same.
Right. And how do you know if it's good?
You have to trust yourself a little bit, and sometimes it's not that good, and you listen to it 2 years later, you think, what was I thinking then? But you also have to listen to what people say. And it can't please everybody, of course, so you will have people who love it and people who don't totally feel much from it.
I see. So you evaluate more from your own passion and how you perceive your music or other people's comments?
I love people's comments, but I base my directions on my own perceptions because I have to stick to my guns and keep growing in that direction. I'm not saying I will not change direction,
of course.
But I have to stick to what I believe in.
Right, because you're not a boy band, otherwise you'll be One Direction.
Exactly, well done.
Right, okay, tell you what, just to make sure that everybody else is on the same page with us, let's hear some music, all right, by Jonas Depp. That was brilliant, Jonas. Okay, bravo. All right, now, how did you end up in Thailand?
So the first time I came to Thailand, I had no idea about Asia. I had no idea about Thailand. I didn't know much about it. I had never been. And my partner at the time from Belgium was moving to Chiang Mai to become an English teacher. That was his plan. At the same time, I graduated at the Conservatory of Music, and I didn't have a plan. My flat contract was running out. So I thought, what else to do than just follow him and then see how it goes. So initially for 6 months, a year, undefined, moved to Thailand.
All right, and from that day until now, you've been here for
12 years.
12 years already, right. And that piano that your uncle left you?
That one has been sold a long time ago. Actually, yes. It was a very old piano. It still had the candle holders attached to it and had the wax on the keys from the candles.
Yeah.
And some strings missing. And so I think my parents had to exchange that one for a new one at the piano shop.
Right, okay. Yes. So you came to Thailand for love.
For love, basically that's what it is, but also for adventure because I didn't have a plan. And
adventurous love.
I love adventurous.
Of course, indeed. All right, you didn't speak Thai at that time?
At all.
At all. How did you manage to survive?
To start with, there was 2 of us, so it's easier. At least we have someone to talk to.
Okay.
We picked up quite quickly on the basic needs, how to order food and how to get directions, things like that. And 2 years later, I decided to learn proper speaking. Yeah. Because I thought I was staying longer, so why not?
Okay, cool. And then 12 years passed.
12 years passed so quick.
All right. You regret coming to Thailand?
No, never. No, not at all.
Right.
And my parents were not really behind the idea at first, but now they think I made a great decision. Right. They love coming and visit. They think my career is better than if I had stayed in Belgium.
Nice. Why is that? Why would you be more successful as a musician, as a pianologist?
Thank you.
Based here in Thailand?
Everybody asks that question, and there is many answers to that, but the emotive answer would be that I feel much freer being away from where I'm from. And the freedom of mind and gives you a lot of possibilities in creation and expression.
Right.
That's a bit of an emotional answer. But then practically, Europe has such a high number of musicians, pianists. Competition is huge. And producers don't pay money for it. Because there is the new student everywhere that just wants to have experience and want to do it for the CV.
Right. Okay. So if I were to ask you, what would be Thai people's perception towards classical music?
In my opinion, it has changed a lot since I arrived. When I arrived 12 years ago in Chiang Mai, it was not a very big interest. It was a small group of people, and it was definitely for the wealthy. Back then, I think it's more democratic now, and it's more popular as well than it used to be.
Yeah.
And concert-wise, there is a lot more also in Bangkok.
Right. And when you compose your own music, do you write the lyrics to the melodies as well?
Rarely.
Really?
Sometimes I have a few words, but for before or after, or like a little poem or explanation or a guideline for the mind. But during the music, I don't really like words.
Right. But you said that in order to be a good pianologist, you have to be able to communicate. But communicating without words, I mean, that's kind of difficult, is it?
I think it's easier because when you communicate with words, that's a cage for people's mind.
Okay.
The word has only one meaning, or a couple meanings or a few meanings, but it's all very clearly defined.
Yeah.
Whereas a musical line is interpreted very differently from everyone.
And what happens if the interpreter, translated it the wrong way, not the way you intended?
Well, I think it happens all the time.
Which is okay.
Which is okay, yeah.
Oh,
I think a composer is happy to see his own works also evolve through under other performers, or musicians.
Okay.
Might agree more with some and less with others.
And how did you, become such a household name amongst, people who like music?
You mean in Thailand?
Yeah. What was your shot to fame? What happened?
Actually, for 10 years, I was being the piano accompanist for Ballet Academy. So I was not doing a lot of concerts.
Yeah.
I was kind of behind the scenes all the time, and I was doing that in many countries around. So I guess bit by bit in Chiang Mai first, because where I lived in Chiang Mai before Bangkok.
Yeah.
I had some friends who were producers or decided to be producers and introduced me to everyone around and make sure that the concerts were well attended. And then when I moved to Bangkok, I guess when you meet a few musicians, professional musicians, it's not a very big crowd in Bangkok, so we know each other quite quickly. And so when people think piano and Farang, they think of me.
Okay.
And I get calls and emails.
Okay. So, I mean,
perform.
then what is the reason? I mean, why are you still based here in Thailand where you could, go anywhere at this point?
Well, I do go places. Well, not this time, but usually I still go places. But I think now we're back to the love answer. So I still have love in Thailand. Not the initial one.
Of course.
That came with me. But
Let's leave that behind.
Yes, upgrade.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah, love 4.0.
Oh, well, yeah, 6.0.
Oops. All right. Okay, so pretty much because your family, for love and family here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So what is the most important thing that you've learned living here in Thailand?
That's a very good one. There's definitely a few. One that I'm sure will stick with me regardless I stay here or forever or not.
Right.
Is to be patient. And if things don't go at the speed you want, it's okay. Eventually, it will be there.
Okay. So what's the most irritating, slow-paced activity or event that has hit you and led you to that?
Oh, I hope you have time.
Briefly.
Briefly. Oh, there's a lot of them.
Traffic's one of them.
Traffic is
Yeah,
definitely a big one, but not as much in Chiang Mai, where I just go on my motorbike everywhere.
Okay.
In Bangkok, that's definitely a big one. Well, it's very simple things like the cashier at 7-Eleven or the feedback. when you communicate with people by email or message.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes they read your message and it comes up as read, and they just leave it there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But usually it comes with an answer eventually.
All right.
If you are patient.
Okay. Learning to become very patient.
Yeah, but it's a skill. I think it's very useful. Make me more calm.
Okay. Right. Now, once you declare yourself a pianologist, people kind of expect to hear the best. They expect the best from you. So how do you deliver the best?
Well, I expect to give them the best I can to start with. And then I really try to make it an unforgettable moment for people who come, especially for people who've never seen a piano concert. I make it very relaxed, not stiff. People can behave the way they want, and I make sure they know it.
Yeah.
They want to take a picture, take a picture.
Even with flash?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It has to be comfortable. It has to be
Right.
fun.
But
Now-
phone has to be silent though.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
Although if sometimes it happens and I can make a joke with it. I can copy the melody of the phone ringtone. And it's always possible to turn a negative into a positive.
Yeah.
And if I'm having a good time on stage, people in the audience are having a good time.
Right. You mentioned the word seen. People who have not seen a piano concert. Why don't we focus on the word hear?
You're
What's the
absolutely
difference?
right.
What's the difference between hearing your music and seeing you perform on
That
stage?
is an excellent question, especially this society and this age is so visual, very visually oriented. The Instagram is exploding. People look at things all the time, and that's how they get information. So for me, I believe strongly that in this day and age, music should come with some type of visual.
Right.
Of course, you hear the music, but if you can see something at the same time, whether it's a light design that goes with the rhythm, whether it's a projection, whether it's a dancer, a drawing, something that happens visually,
Right.
I think that enhances the experience a
Right.
lot.
So if this podcast were to have one picture, one still picture of what we're talking about right now, throughout this entire 40 minutes of conversation, what would that picture be?
A pink microphone.
A pink microphone. Yeah. Okay, why pink?
I don't know. I just had to come up with something quickly.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's go a bit to Thai classical music. You've been listening to some that
I've heard
playing Thai derm. Is that what you call it? Playing Thai classical music. Yeah.
I've heard quite a bit of it. I have not studied it, so
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of knowledge about it. What's the question about it?
No, just like, how do you perceive it
How do
when
I
you
perceive
listen
it?
to Thai traditional music?
Well, yeah, I think the word traditional is quite fitting.
Yeah,
So in that sense that, like most traditional music, it is something that still reflects exactly the way it was created.
Right.
I don't think it has evolved a lot,
Yeah.
which could be a good thing or a bad thing according to what people see about it.
Right.
I find usually the very interesting part in Thai music for me is how they orchestrate it.
Yeah.
Because the melodies are very simple and they're based on a pentatonic scale usually,
Yeah.
similar to most traditional music of this part of the world and other parts too. So the core I find is technically simple, but the orchestration is where I like it, how they mix the instruments, how they layer it.
Right. But Thai classical music is seen by many as high art, sometimes sacred, So I mean, it creates a distance between the audience and the musicians or performers. I mean, how do we solve this issue?
I couldn't disagree more with what you said, and actually classical music is the same where I studied
In Europe,
at
yeah.
the Royal Conservatory. It's considered sacred.
Okay.
What I do as a pianologist is not really accepted that much.
Right.
By many traditionalists.
Would you say you're rebellious?
Probably.
Is that the word? Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So, how do we solve it? Either we don't solve it and we stick to what it is, or if we want to solve it, I think it needs the freshness of the voice of today,
Right.
which includes technologies, which includes getting out of the box, using the melody, but twisting it.
Yeah.
But it always creates problems with people who prefer to keep the sacred untouched. So, yeah.
Some people say if it's not broken, don't fix it. So that's why they try to like keep it, preserve it as it is.
My composition teacher always said, if it's perfect, try to break something in it so that it can develop in something new. Or if you have an apple, look for the worm inside. That will create the whole gallery of mistakes or interesting resonance or new directions. And I like that vision.
Yeah.
I like
Similar to a painting or a sculpture, in this case music, when you compose, when you make something, when do you know that it's done and it's perfect and it's leave it as it is?
That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Actually, I think for myself, I just force myself to stop at one point. I give myself a deadline. If I have an album to put out, I set a deadline. And
So your biggest influence is the deadline.
Date. Yes.
Okay.
Because I think I could keep tweaking it, twisting it, developing it forever. And I probably will.
Right.
Like if I will perform something that I created 2 years ago, it will probably be a bit different already by now and different again the next time.
Right. Okay. So when you perform, quite often that your partner, Kun Ot, right, would create art along as well.
Yes, we've done that a few times.
Yeah. Whose idea was it?
It was his idea the first time.
Yeah.
When we did it at the Galleries Night, Bangkok Galleries Night. And we were just starting to date at that time. So that was his idea. It was not totally symbiotic yet. He was doing his thing based on me doing my thing. And then later on we developed that. The next one was my idea to make him be a musician on the paper with his charcoal. So I made him learn a whole piece of music.
Okay.
And he would draw in a rhythm, just like an instrument of music. And there was a microphone by his wrist to record the sound of his...
Nice.
Yeah, so that was, for him, very hard, but I think he loved it in the end.
Maybe he loved you, so he loved that.
You have to take the whole package, don't you?
Yeah. Having a partner who is also an artist. All right, Kun Ot is a renowned painter and writer.
Yes.
Right? So does that affect your performance? And does your music have an influence on him as well?
So there's two questions there. I think the performance is not directly affected, but the day-to-day life, living together, is definitely influencing each other a lot. And we constantly debate philosophical aspects of being an artist or being a performer. We always seek advice from each other. We help each other out. Sometimes we disagree. But it's very different from my previous relationships where my partner was not an artist or a performer. And it was not that easy to communicate how we feel about things and especially to justify how important it is for us.
Even though you guys speak the same language, both coming from Belgium.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was different.
Right. So you're saying the language is not as big as a barrier than the mindset.
Definitely. I think even total misunderstanding of language is okay if like we find a common mindset.
If you don't mind me asking, you are a member of the LGBTQ
Yes, I am.
community, right? So how would you evaluate the LGBTQ scene in Thailand today compared to 12 years when you came 12 years ago?
Well, when I came initially 12 years ago, I felt it was pretty open already in Chiang Mai, where I was. I felt that the people were quite frank and open and not hiding and not scared.
Right.
Which was a very nice surprise. It's not the case everywhere. Now, of course, politically, people are hoping for a bit more. And I think it's on the way, not quite there yet. But in general, I think the society is very accepting.
I see.
I feel very comfortable. But then I think if I was Thai, I would feel a little bit different.
Why is that?
I think when we're close to home, we feel the gaze of others a bit more strongly. For me, I feel more free here than back home. And not only because of the circumstances, but also because if my my own people
Ah.
look at me in a certain way. I maybe I have more analysis and more feelings from that. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Right. Is Thailand as open as other countries when it comes to this issue?
Yes. I think it's very open. Of course, it's not every level. And in general, I feel very little antagony towards LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And I feel that they have the same chances as others.
Yeah.
Hopefully it keeps going that way and improve a bit politically.
Now, Jonas, if you were not a musician, what would you be doing today?
Who knows?
If your uncle had not dropped that piano in your house when you were 5 years old.
I would probably do something related to horses and horse riding.
Horses?
Yes.
Why is that?
There's been a passion of mine all my life. I've had horses at home in Belgium.
Okay.
2 stallions, and I was riding every day out in the forest, and it brings me a lot of happiness.
Right.
I would definitely do something like that, but it's also by accident that I got 2 horses, so who knows.
Your uncle left you horses.
It's not an uncle, but
Another
close.
uncle.
It's close. It's also
All right.
a family friend.
2 things that you like the most, the piano and horse. Why don't you mix them together?
That is a great idea. I have tried last year.
Oh, you have?
Yes, but the person who was responsible of bringing the horses bailed, and so it didn't happen. But we will try again. It was supposed to be a concert with this guy is a dressage champion. Dressage is this horse discipline where you make them do like beautiful things like a choreography.
Okay.
And he was a champion of that. So we were going to do a 3-horse dance around the piano. But it didn't happen yet.
Or maybe even play a piano on horseback.
That's too circusy for me.
Is it?
Yeah, I think the music will lose from the discomfort of the position.
Right. Now, Jonas, art is made to express a thought or a feeling of the artist. Now, sometimes in some forms of art, it's very hard to reach, inaccessible. Not only music, but many forms of art. Why is that, and how do we fix it?
Yes, how to fix it. I think if children are exposed to something since they're very young, it becomes a normal for them.
Right.
So I don't know how the school system is here exactly, but where I grew up, we see a lot of contemporary art or we're theater since quite young, and it becomes very normal.
Right.
So I'm personally very comfortable with contemporary or conceptual or inaccessible kind of arts, as some would say, because I think there is always something that you can find and that you can link to yourself,
right.
Even if it doesn't express beauty or joy or something very tangible. It can maybe teach you something else about your day, about how you perceive things.
Speaking of teach, you're a very talented musician or a pianologist. Do you teach?
I don't.
Why not?
Well, maybe I should try again because I wasn't patient enough when I tried 12 years ago. I did it for 1 year, and it was not my passion. I have to say that the 2 very good kids I had, it was a joy to work with them. All the other ones was a waste of my time and their parents' money.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's not for everybody, and I'm quite demanding for myself, so I expect the same from someone who wants to learn.
I see.
And if they don't put in the effort, then I don't want to waste my time.
So from that, you're saying that not everybody can become a successful musician.
I believe not everybody can. But I think it's for every kind of work, every line of work, especially like skilled work.
All right. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
I believe I'll have still always a foot in Thailand because it felt like home since the first year I arrived here, and it hasn't changed since. I would like to keep traveling a lot if it's allowed again soon. Ideally, I would only compose and perform. and then take care of my garden and horses.
Horses.
Yes, that would be ideal life.
Right.
Don't need anything else.
You're gonna have a horse in Thailand. Horses in Thailand.
I wish, yes, but the problem it needs constant care.
Yeah.
So
and they're gonna need Thai names as well. What would you name your horses?
Probably food. Like everybody names their pets food in Thailand.
Tom
no?
yum.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or kai tun. Or
Kai tun.
Luk kappi.
What's Lukapi?
It's something that comes with cow che.
Oh, Lukapi. Oh, okay, I get you.
Actually, my cat's name is cow che.
Yeah. How sweet. You already have quite a big and devoted fan base, right? But for people who are not familiar with music or your music in this case, where can they find your work?
Actually, my compositions have been released on Spotify slowly. This year I started, so bit by bit, it's there at the Pianologist. And then apart from that, you can always check the website, thepianologist.com.
โอ้สุดยอดคุณผู้ฟังฮะคือถ้าดนตรีเนี่ยคือการสื่อสารนะพูดเลยว่าการที่เราได้เชิญนักดนตรีนะฮะผู้มีความสามารถอย่างคุณโจนัสเนี่ยมาในรายการเราในวันนี้เนี่ยฮะสามารถสื่อสารได้หลายเรื่องหลายประเด็นเหลือเกินนะฮะซึ่งเชื่อว่าคุณผู้ฟังหลายๆคนเนี่ยน่าจะได้คิดตามนะฮะแล้วก็ได้ไอเดียใหม่ๆได้แรงบันดาลใจใหม่ๆได้ความรู้ใหม่ๆนะครับรวมถึงแง่คิดใหม่ๆที่เกิดจากการพูดคุยในครั้งนี้นะฮะแต่จริงๆอยากจะคุยต่อนะฮะแต่ว่าเอาจริงๆเนี่ยคุณโจนัสเองเนี่ยก็ต้องกลับไปหาน้องข้าวแช่หรือไม่ก็ไปหาข้าวแช่กินใช่ไหมฮะ แล้วไปหาข้าวให้ข้าวแช่ด้วย
ใช่
เลยนะครับก็เลยงั้นวันนี้พอแค่นี้ก่อนนะครับแล้วก็ยังไงถ้ามีผลงานอะไรยังไงเดี๋ยวถ้าในโอกาสหน้าทางอเดจะขออนุญาตเชิญมาอีกที
ยินดีครับ
ยินดีครับขอบคุณมากครับคุณโจนัสครับ
ยินดีครับ
คุณผู้ฟังครับโจนัสเดฟครับ
ขอบคุณครับ
ติดตาม A Day Podcast ได้ทาง adaymagazine.com Joox Apple Podcast Spotify Podbean SoundCloud และ A Day Magazine YouTube Channel